Hello friends, this is Hans Rueffert from the Gastric Cancer Foundation, also a gastric cancer patient/survivor. And I'm here with my friend Ellen Steinberg, who's sort of my repository of the science nerdy stuff. I kind of know the food, she knows the business behind the food. And I wanted to talk today about probiotics and prebiotics. That's something we're seeing on every label these days. So can you give us sort of an overview?
Absolutely. Pre and probiotics. Probiotics, by definition, are actually living organisms. Prebiotics are what helps support the well-being, so to speak, of probiotics. So if you think about your gut, if you think about it as a garden, sometimes you can have weeds growing in your garden and you want pretty things, everything to keep it a nice environment. Probiotics can help do that. Probiotics are the seeds that may grow into a pretty flower, for instance. The prebiotics are like the fertilizer, meaning they help feed the probiotics so that they can flourish and grow. Probiotics, as you know, you're digesting basically live organisms, whereas prebiotics are typically the result of fermented carbohydrates. So you eat a carbohydrate, it is not fully digested, it ferments, it creates what are called short-chain fatty acids, if you can think of those as the fuel for your probiotics. That helps support their well-being, so to speak. All of this is good because it supports gut health, it helps with immunity.
So when we're talking about really probiotics, bio meaning sort of life,
Right.
They are alive.
They are alive.
So there's a threshold beyond which you cook something that sort of negates that effect.
Exactly.
And so I like to think of probiotics as sort of doing some of the heavy lifting for me. Since I no longer have a stomach, I need all the help I can get helping to digest those things, which are sometimes difficult to digest. So ingesting probiotics in the form of a supplement is sort of inoculating your system with more of those good living bacteria. Fermented foods or cultured foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, once you cook those foods, or if you see them shelf stable, they might not have the effectiveness that you might have.
Exactly. And so while those foods are good, even sauerkraut, if you were to buy the kind that was not pasteurized, like in a bag, that has more probiotics than something in a can. So you're correct in that it certainly depends upon the form of the food and whether or not it's been cooked.
And I've even seen packaged probiotics that say they're designed to be released in the intestine, so they can survive the acidity. But
Right.
in the form of just eating food, you will have a certain amount that is negated, which is why you're eating billions of bacteria, right?
And
Rather than just like 3 or 4. You know?
Yes, and it's actually better to have more different bacteria because some survive better than others. So you have lactobacillus, which is in the gut that can help with diarrhea. And then you have other, like bifidobacteria, which can also help with immunity and things like that. So it's better to get many cultures as opposed to just concentrating on one. When you're picking, though, a supplement form, it's important to know your probiotics, to know what they are, so that you can ingest them. But if ever you're confused about products, I say look for the billions, not the millions, and look for a wide array of probiotics. So you don't want to just, unless someone has told you lactobacilli, look at other ones that have lactobacilli, bifidobacterium. So look for a wide array of probiotics.
Yeah, because it's not just one; it's a whole colony. Yeah, it takes a village.
It takes a village.
On that note, just to continue this conversation, the word antibiotics, I think again, if you're thinking of bio being life, it's things that are for the livelihood and life of you, then there are things that are sort of anti. And so when you're on antibiotics, it doesn't know how to take out specifically the quote unquote bad bacteria. It takes out all of them.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yes, with antibiotics, you're correct. It wipes out all bacteria, good and bad. So when you're on an antibiotic, I would always consult with your physician, but I think that's a great time to take probiotics to help support your gut, and because you don't want to wipe out everything. You just want to wipe out the bad, leave the good.
And using your weed analogy, and I personally had a C. diff infection shortly after my surgeries from all of the antibiotics, and I was miserable, and I don't remember, it's Clostridium difficile?
Yes.
And they just called it C. diff, and I was miserable, but I basically had an overrun of one of those bad bacteria. After the antibiotics, it sort of left everything barren, and one of these bad bacteria set up shop, and like a weed, like kudzu, overran my entire system.
Exactly.
And it became a very long probiotic therapy to try to get the garden back into balance, repress the weeds, encourage the roses. And I think that's an extreme example, but that's the kind of thing that can happen particularly after an antibiotic session.
Right, and it's unfortunate that it's sort of pre and probiotics sort of go through fads. It is not a fad, it is true science, and it does help with overall gut health.
Well, thank you, Ellen. It always sort of helps reinforce what I know or think I know to have an expert talk about it. But I always do try to incorporate some sort of a cultured or healthy, but in containing live and active bacteria is the key, into my diet every day as much as possible. Thank you guys for joining us. We will have more segments soon, and we will see you here in the Gesundheit Kitchen or in the Gesundheit Forest as it is today.